And next, we're going to dive into what I like to call the community ecosystem map. And before I do that, I want to use an analogy to set the context for how we think about engagement in our community. So I love this image of a terrarium because a terrarium, your community, is creating boundaries. So similar to what Laura just said in that quote from Priya Parker, by creating those boundaries, you have this contained ecosystem where your relationships, connections, and value is being created. I love this image for a couple of reasons. Number one, it helps us start to see that each organism plays a role in this ecosystem. Just by being there and doing the thing that it's meant to do, that each organism supports other organisms and their existence. The second reason I love it is because everything is dependent on the right conditions. And that's what we have control over. Plants were made to grow. People were made for connection. Asking if community will work is like asking, will plants like really grow? If we plant them, will they really grow? Duh, of course they will. That's what they're made for. Do we have the conducive conditions for these plants to grow in this environment with these conditions? We don't know. That's what we're testing. That's what you are testing in your community. But I love how this gives us the power to tinker with those conditions to find what's going to make it conducive so that this ecosystem can thrive. So I'm going to actually use this same analogy for two different frameworks. But first, so we're going to approach how you think about your community like an ecosystem from two different angles. But I want to start with the ecosystem map. And this is specifically looking at your community programs. There's even more layers to this, but I simplified it for this version. There'll be a time where we dig in a little bit deeper and add one more layer to it. But I start with this matrix. And I like to consider three primary pillars of community programming on the left. First is events, second is conversation, and third is content. Now, these are pretty fluid. It's not as delineated as these 9 boxes here, but just go with me. Then across the top, we have 3 call to actions. You can adjust these if there's 3 call to actions for your community members that resonate more with you, but generally I've found these 3 tend to fit with almost every community. So getting started has its own entire section. When your members are able to get up and running in their first 30 days, the likelihood of them sticking around in your community quadruples. Laura is going to dive into this even more in our onboarding framework. The second is getting help. So usually there's some sort of pain point, they're getting caught up to speed and they need help. And then there is get inspired. So now they've come through some sort of dilemma, but now what? Now how do we move forward into the future? So what I want you to do and what you'll do when we give you the download is work out for all the existing programs that you have in your community, where would they fall on this matrix? So maybe we have a mastermind. That helps people, but it also inspires people. We have a member spotlight. So members can tell their story, their success stories, and that's housed in our community. We have an onboarding email series, which helps people get started. So you'll map out all of your existing programs, layer over future programs that you could introduce, and notice where there's any gaps. So are there any gaps in your matrix, and where can you layer over programs that are going to help support these call to actions from 3 different pillars? Okay, some questions. I actually went over the reflection questions. Okay, back to Laura.